All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, it is with great appreciation that we, the residents of Protection Island, acknowledge this land as the unceded territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation and of their legacy throughout the island. Thanks to Peter and Marlene for helping us set up again, as they often do. This talk is being recorded. Peter will let us know in a day or two when it's available. Questions at the end, please. Zoomers, use the chat box or raise your hand and mute yourselves until the end. Thank you, Zoomers. Paper cups. You'll notice we're using paper cups because our brand new dishwasher has a little tiny leak. So we're using paper cups today. So that's why we have them. And hopefully that'll be fixed by next week. Donations will go to the Parks Committee. Now, last week we said they went to the Parks Committee, but in fact they went to Antonia. We gave them to Antonia for helping help to offset the cost of that new antenna that she's installed. It was just $58.40, but hey, everything helps.
Yep.
As you know, the kitchen inspection was successful. We now have an approved kitchen in compliance with VHA regulations. And thanks to Kim for last Sunday for setting up the golf cart, for selling the golf cart lubricant and cleaner and pumping up our tires. And now I would like to tell you all about our topic. To talk about the Camino, I knew I needed a brief history refresher. And in the off chance that you do too, and before I introduce the girls, here is a 2-minute blurb on 3,000 years of Camino history. So, I just wanted to say that most of this is from a Smithsonian documentary that I have. If there's any history teachers out there, please forgive me. Some places on Earth resonate with sacred mysteries and legends. The Camino is such a place. For thousands of years, pagan man trekked the northern coast of Spain, gazed up at the Milky Way, and contemplated his existence, God's existence, and that of the universe. He also prayed for things like love, good fortune, fertility, and to reduce time in purgatory. Soon the Romans came and built incredible networks of roads, and most ultimately became Christian. In 711 AD, Muslims invaded Spain from North Africa and took over much of the Iberian Peninsula. The Catholic Church, by way of trying to do their part to discourage the northward movement, built a string of churches and cathedrals along an ancient Roman east-west road, the Via Janus. Eventually, the Spanish military were able to oust the invaders, but not before the bones of St. James, one of the 12 apostles, were allegedly found nearby and enshrined in the new cathedral of Santiago de Compostela at the western end of this route, the Via Janus, thus ensuring the Camino's place in sacred religious history. Eventually, 11 routes were identified, and you'll see them on the map over there as you go towards that table later on. And so now, for more than 1,000 years, Christian pilgrims have traveled these many routes to the cathedral. Most archaeologists and scholars now believe that St. James never actually left Jerusalem and believe instead that the Catholic Church invented the connection between the saint and the Camino to strengthen the fight against the rise of Islam and to Christianize the ancient pagan pilgrimages. But that hasn't altered people's love of the Camino. There is an ongoing love, a sacred bond and love between man and the area. 1 million people visit this UNESCO World Heritage Site every year, seeking peace, tranquility, religious connection, and a connection with our earth, our existence, and our bodies. Now, first of all, a little bit about Liz. Liz became interested in the area quite a while ago, actually. She loves people and loves to travel. She says she read a book by Shirley MacLaine. And I'm pretty sure I heard about that book. Yeah, about her travels to the Camino back in the 1980s, and later saw a documentary on the Camino in Victoria. These two things really sparked her interest in the area, and she has now traveled to the Camino 5 times, joining up with Linda, Darlene, and Nora for various trips. Now for Linda has completed 4 Caminos. She was drawn to the Camino after watching the film The Way. directed by Emilio Estevez and starring his father, Charlie Sheehan. Her first Camino, the 800-kilometer Camino Francais, now that was the old Roman road, the Via Janus, was done with her husband, Gary, right after retiring from corporate life in Calgary. Along with completing Caminos, she has taken to adventure traveling, some of which include the Abel Tasman Trail in New Zealand, West Highland Trail in Scotland, the Salcatani Trail in Peru, BC's West Coast Trail, and the Pembrokeshire Trail in Wales. She's planning to hike the 35-day Le Puy-en-Velay hike in southern France next. Please welcome these two intrepid travelers, Liz and Linda, to tell you about their experiences.
Good.
I'll clear out and give you some room.
Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit about pilgrims and pilgrimages. And I met a medical historian who told me that in, a few hundreds of years ago, people in Northern Europe would go on pilgrimage down to Southern Europe and be miraculously cured. So she explained what was going on. In Northern Europe, they have a diet based on wheat, not on wheat, on rye for their bread. And rye can get this fungus growing on it. Jane, can you remember? Ergot, that's it. And it's actually, LSD has some of that in it to give you psychotic sort of experiences. But you'd also lose the feeling in your nerve endings, so your feet and your hands especially. So as they started to walk south, they'd be walking through wheat-growing countries, and their diets would change. And also, if they were really sick, they'd end up in a hospital somewhere in mid or southern Europe, and there they'd recover because once again it's a wheat-based diet. And they'd be, by the time they got to one of the cathedrals or pilgrim routes, they'd be cured. So then they'd go back and it would start all over again. And then they'd come so I just thought I'd bring that up.
I just wanted to touch base, a little elaboration about choosing it for the first time being. I had watched the movie The Way with Martin Sheen, not Charlie Sheen. It's a great movie. The premise is that his son went and he hiked through the Pyrenees and he died doing his Camino, and the father wanted to go and finish the Camino in honor of his son. So that took off, and then it just got me. I mean, the scenery, the story, everything. And just like anything, the law of attraction, I put it out there, and I kept meeting people that knew of it or had done it, and it just really drew me to it. And then my husband decided he wanted to join me, and I'm thinking, wow, 6 weeks walking a half marathon every day. Can we do it? It's either going to make us or break us. And you know what? It made us. It was just a really remarkable time. And that was what started it all.
And I just want to give credit to Catherine Eck, because I can't remember if Catherine walked it, but she was the one that put me onto, there's an organization out of Victoria called the Canadian Company of Pilgrims.
Right.
What a weird name for a group. Anyway, I joined it on her recommendation, and they have 2 walks every month, and they have a spring workshop that's coming up in March, a full day of different people talking about walking about the Camino, and there'll be a workshop on blisters, a workshop on how to pack, a workshop on, I don't know, what to expect, that sort of thing. So it's really worth joining, and you can get special rates on travel insurance as well, because the travel insurance company figures if you're going to walk the Camino, you've got to be in pretty good health, right? So they give you cheaper rates.
And you can get your credential there too, your passport, which you need while you're doing the Camino in Victoria as well at that organization.
Yeah. So each night you take your passport, and each night you get it stamped by the place you're staying at. And then when you finish your Camino, you present this to the people at the Camino office in San Diego, and they give you a Compostela, a certificate of completion. And they check your stamps to know that you've, really stopped and walked the whole.
You're
the whole
legit.
Yeah.
And to get the Compostela, even though like France is 800 kilometers, you only need to have completed 100 kilometers to qualify for a Compostela. So a lot of people will start in Sarria. You can do it by walking. You can do it on bicycle, but you have to do 200 kilometers. And you can do it on horseback as well. I don't know what the requirements are for that. And I'm not sure if e-bikes have factored into it these days, but I hope not.
So this is a map of the typical, when people say, have you walked the Camino? They're talking about this Camino, which starts just off the screen here, at the bottom of the Pyrenees in a place called Saint-Jean, Pied-de-Pierre. Pied-de-Port. So the entranceway to the path up the Pyrenees. So the first day is like a 1,200 meter climb, and then a 400 meter decline for a total of 32 kilometers.
It's
However, there is now what they call an albergue, a hostel-like accommodation, 8 kilometers up the worst part of the section. So a lot of people now do it in 2 days, thank goodness. And then you'd go along this 500-mile or 800K route to the cathedral, where 900 years ago the bones of St. James were found. 900 years after he died. So I have a little skepticism about that, but they found some bones, and I think
somebody said
the bishop thought this is a good tourist opportunity, so they built the cathedral, and then it became a pilgrim route. However, this is a map of some of the route. I don't know if I can, oops, go back. This is just in Spain. All these colored dots are different Caminos. So they say a Camino starts as soon as you go out your front door in Europe, and you start walking until you hit one of the main roads that leads down south into the northwest corner of Spain. But you could walk, and Linda and Darlene and I walked from Porto along the coast up into Santiago, which is about a 12-day walk. I've also done the interior route. And I met a Canadian couple who had walked up the coast, and then they were walking back down. They had 24 days, so they did up there and back. And Linda's walked, it's a little off the screen, along the north coast of Spain.
The Norte route.
Called the Norte route. What other routes have you done?
I've done the two Portuguese, the Francais, and the Norte.
And the Norte, yeah.
There's a few other main routes. One's called the Via de la Plata. It's the longest of the main routes. It's 1,000 kilometers, and it begins in Seville. Yeah, follows an ancient road. It's very remote, few services. It's the least crowded. The Francais is the most crowded, but I think everyone should do that at least once.
Yeah.
The one thing in Spain is there's no wild camping allowed. So you're not allowed to pitch a tent. People do it, but it's illegal. So you've got to do a lot of planning when you're doing these routes to get lodging along the way.
Their definition of wild is different than ours.
Yeah,
our idea of wild is more like cougars and bears and remoteness. Theirs is just anywhere outside of a campsite.
And then there's the Primitivo. That's the original way. It starts in Oviedo. It's the oldest historical route. It's 320 kilometers, and it's very mountainous. And the Portuguese, we talked about that. And the Del Norte, that I've done that one. That's 830 kilometers. Goes through the Basque country, which is just a fascinating place. It's got its own language and culture, exceptional food. You pass through San Sebastian, Bilbao, where the Guggenheim is. A lot of coastal villages and colorful harbors.
And there's also Camino starting in Norway. So you could walk from Norway into Sweden and then down in through Germany. You can start in Switzerland and walk through. And, so there's lots of Caminos.
The next one I'm planning on doing is Le Puy-en-Velay, which is in France, and it goes to Saint John Pied-de-Port. And some people take it from there and then go all the way to Santiago, but I won't do that. I don't think I'd stay married if I did. That's 780 kilometers, but you don't stay in albergues, you stay in gîtes Hotel. And it's one of the Caminos where when you stay there, you stay in people's farmhouses and you eat really well, like hearty French food that includes, bread and wine and cheese and dessert. And it's one of the Caminos that when you finish, you haven't lost any weight. Apparently the food is amazing. Yeah.
And then, in a pinch and in COVID, we wanted to go on a Camino, but we weren't going to go to Europe. So we invented our own Camino. So we walked from here to Victoria via Salt Spring. So my sister and I and Linda, and this is us. It was just pouring with rain when we took the ferry from Fulford Harbor to Schwartz Bay. So this is the Schwartz Bay washroom where we
run out of our clothes.
Yeah.
We ran into these women.
This is down in Victoria, so we only had another mile to go. And we sat on a bench in front of the bridge, the pedestrian bridge going over the gorge. And there was were there four of them? I think there were four women coming towards us with backpacks on. They kind of looked like us, but they were going in the opposite direction. So we said, "Where are you guys going?" And they said, "To Nanaimo." We just came from there. A good chat.
They were doing the Trans-Canada Trail.
Yeah.
They were going to do a section in every province. I think 100 kilometers. That was so cool.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so why do you walk? And they ask this question when you end the Camino and you go to get your certificate. They ask you, why do you walk? And the four questions they ask, is it for religious reasons, health, physical fitness, holiday, or other? So it can be a whole combination. And I can't remember what the results were from their surveys.
No, I don't know either.
But certainly it has changed from religious or spirituality much more towards health and physical fitness and holidays. In the Camino Frances, the main one, they call it the Camino Frances, but it's really, other than the first 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers, which is in France, everything else is in Spain, but they call it the Camino Frances because it started there. If you're interested in going on it, but you're a bit nervous, it's a really good one to start on because they have all the infrastructure in place. They have cafes and bakeries, every 20 kilometers, sometimes more. They have all these different types of hotel accommodation, and they have lots of people doing it. You certainly don't want to do it in the summer because it's way too hot and it's really crowded. And you hear these horror stories about people getting up at 3 a.m. and going out the door and quickly going to the next place to be able to get a bed. Well, that doesn't really happen in the spring or in the fall. But the Frances, it's like a movable feast. Everybody's going in the same direction. They've got the same purpose. They might leapfrog past you, and then you leapfrog past them, and then you'll see them at lunchtime, and then you'll see somebody else at dinner, and then you'll be sharing a bunk bed room with a bunch of others you met the night before. So it becomes a very sociable trip. And so even if you're doing it by yourself, you get to see the same people over and over again. And so that's a lot of fun that way.
I made a note about why I walk the Camino. And I enjoy the physical challenge. I enjoy the seeing what's around the corner, the ever-changing landscape. I mean, it's just spectacular scenery. And I enjoy the moments of solitude, getting away from the noise of everyday life. It's I always seem to come home a lot clearer and a lot lighter in that regard. It's yeah, it's a very cool experience. And things that surprise me is like how quickly the days begin to flow together, and how simple everything is. I mean, you just walk, eat, rest, repeat. And how easy it is to connect with people. I think that walking is just such a great way to connect with people, to have conversations. You know, there's no other distractions. You're just walking, and I find people a lot more authentic when you're just so present and in that moment. Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a typical day. So there are books, and we've got a couple here. This is the one on the Camino de Santiago, and he's broke it down into, I think, 33 different sections, suggesting that you start here and you end the day there. And we ignored that because he suggests you do 32K on your first day, all uphill, and that's a bit much. But he's got easy maps. He'll describe the history of the area that you're walking through. He'll also put in a elevation map. So this is like the first day, and you're starting at 170 meters, and you're going up. That's the first place you can stay at 8 kilometers. And then, but some people do this whole route all the way to Roncesvalles.
I've done that, and I've cried. It's so hard.
Yeah. The first time I did it, I carried everything in my backpack. The second, but I did stay. I had read about people suggesting that you stay at Orson. So we did that. And the second time I did it with my sister. And I said, we're going to ship our backpacks to Orson. And then we met our backpacks there, stayed the night, and then we had them shipped to Roncesvalles. And then after that, we carried them all.
Oh, smart.
Yeah,
That was smart. Yeah.
So
There's no right or wrong way to do a Camino.
people think that might be cheating, but
No.
and Linda, this is one day, I guess, or what week is it? October 8th to 6th or something, of how many steps. And
That's from October to November, the average daily steps in the total.
so the average daily steps was just under 34,000 steps. So I can't remember what that. But in here, I kept a blog, and I would write down, what happened that day. And then at the end, I always ended it with distance travel. So in this particular day, 24K for a total of just under 100K. So this was on day 4, probably of one of the Caminos. Weather was breezy, which kept the uphill going at a cooler temperature. Lessons learned. The uphill has you gasping, while the downhill, I think, something about hurting. And food, I always kept track of food. So cafe con leche 4 times.
Liz loves her coffee.
Nuts and seeds, baguettes with cheese and chorizo, and pinchos, which are like tapias, but in the Basque country, they're called pinchos. Ensalada rusa, boiled eggs with mayonnaise and prawn, something ice cream. I can't remember what kind of ice cream, and almond bonbon. And health, sore feet from the steep downhill, but still no blisters. So that's me and my sister, day 2. So we still got 790 kilometers, and you start early in the morning, so it's still dark. You're supposed to leave the albergues by 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you walk. But the scenery is beautiful. This is crossing the Pyrenees here, and there's lots of horses roaming around, lots of cows, sheep. Often they have bells because it can be quite foggy up there, so you can hear the bells, and the cow bells are different than the sheep bells. Here we can't quite see it, but these stones are going over a creek, so when it floods, you can go from stone to stone. Otherwise, you have to walk around. This one, you can see that we're actually going to walk this path and go over the horizon. So you can sort of see these long distances.
And that's pretty indicative of the Français, like there's always people, like it's a crowded route.
Yeah, and I think that was the third or fourth time I did this route. When I did it with my sister again, she came another time. And her daughter, Annie, from the island.
Yeah, right.
And two cousins.
You had a crowd.
And two sisters, my other sister.
Oh, that's all your people there.
Yeah. Oh, but they're a crowd.
It's great.
And then often you have to run.
Oh.
So this is in a little village. It's not at Pamplona, but there's lots of running with the bulls at other places, not just Pamplona. But also you're coming across different animals that are walking the trail too. So this fellow was doing it with 2 donkeys and two dogs. And then often you'd come down a country lane and they're moving animals from one spot to another. More scenery. This is the coastal route in Portugal.
Yeah.
This is how I also walked it with Trudy in the spring, so it was quite different. Most of my walks were in the fall. This is coming over the Pyrenees before the fall. Just another picture. This beautiful, beautiful scenery. And after all that walking, you do get exhausted. But you can't see Darlene. And the food is really good. This is in a remote place up on a mountain, and there's not, most of the village had fallen to pieces, like there's rocks everywhere, but some people have rebuilt a few places. So there's a few places you can stay and they offer dinner. There's no restaurant as such. You have to have dinner with the people that are hosting you for the evening. And in this place, they had paella that served at least 12, maybe 14 people, huge. And they look so proud of having done it.
And this is up top. I was going to point out, this is at a bodega. It's up, I forget exactly where they have free-flowing wine coming out of the wall for the pilgrims.
It's a winery. They have so many liters available.
It's been there since the 1800s, and in the spirit of the Camino, it's there to share, to welcome, and to provide hospitality. I mean, they recommend that you use your shell, but
Did you bring your shell?
I did. This is a symbol of the Camino. You see a lot of people wear it on their backpacks. So that'll hold some wine, but water bottles do a good job too.
And this shell, it sort of symbolizes that these are roads, and all roads lead to Santiago.
Yeah.
So everybody has one of these shells on their backpack, or if you're on the plane and you see somebody with their backpack and it's got a shell, you know where they're going.
Yeah, and the greeting is always Buen Camino when you see each other.
And these are some pinchos, and there's Linda looking at an octopus. There's one town that's famous for octopus. And this is a cake. It's called the Tarta de Santiago, and it's got this symbol on it, which is the symbol of St. James's sword. Oh, and also a typical menu. They have a menu for Pellegrina, but it's a pilgrim menu, and it's a set price, and it's throughout Spain, and it's probably now €12 per person, but that's usually for a 3 or 4 course meal. And wine is usually, a bottle of wine is usually part of that. And
Oh.
so now we're to the blister stage.
Yeah.
Uh,
Your feet set the pace on Caminos. My go-to every morning, I always took. We all did. You know, you honor your feet because that's what rules the day. I brought a jar of Vaseline and I would coat my feet in Vaseline and always double sock. And at lunchtime, always change your socks. Yeah, respect and care. You'd never pass a cold running creek without having a soak. Yeah, I never really suffered from blisters, so I was very lucky that way. How about you, Liz?
I suffered a lot, especially the first time. And I
Well, that looks pretty intense.
well, that's actually Trudy's.
Ouch,
But that was
ouch.
the first time.
Wow.
And she was also getting a bit swollen there, so we went to a clinic. But after that first time, and I think I went through 3 different pairs of shoes before I found one that didn't hurt my feet so much. And so I use
Hokas?
Hokas. And Hokas, there was a time, New York Times article about Hokas, and senior citizens have discovered them because the soles are a little bit wider, they flare out, and so you've got more stability from bending over sideways. But also, it's like walking on air.
Yeah.
It's so soft.
Yeah.
Are those yours, Hokas?
Well, these are very similar to Hokas, but they've got that cushioning and a bit of a rocker too, and they're very lightweight.
Yeah.
Hiking boots didn't work for me at all.
Hiking boots you don't want. The other thing is I wear toe socks. So, you know, little toe socks.
Right.
So you don't get blisters between your toes. And then I put on a pair of liners. Usually you have liners on the inside of your, on the inside, another pair of socks on the outside. But in this case, because I'm wearing toe socks, I put the liners on the outside. And then it's sock moving sock rather than sock. If you get your socks damp, and they go against your skin, then they're pulling your skin back and forth, and that's what creates the blisters. So every chance we get, we would stop and take our shoes off, and then at lunchtime, change socks. And when Trudy and I did it, for 10 days we did that. On the 10th day, we didn't, and that's what happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And here's at the end of the day, which was a really wet day. And there's Nora and Peter, and all the people's boots lined up around the fire to try and dry them out before they went on the next day. I also take a spare pair of insoles because if the insoles get wet, they're harder to dry out than the socks. You can always change your socks, so I thought, well, I'll change insoles too.
I noticed some homemade remedy techniques where people would bring a needle and a thread. And they would pierce the blister and just let it drain that way. It just looks so painful.
But I did that. I took pre-threaded needles. And so if you got a blister, you could take the needle through the blister and come out and leave the thread hanging on each side. And that will allow some drainage because if it tears off, then you're really in pain. And I mentioned this to a dermatologist I walked with one day, and he said, "Why would you do that?" He said, "You do not want to get any germs." Infection, yeah. He was really against that. He said his solution was you would just take that ecto tape, the medical tape, and tape it all over the blister. And if it burst, add more tape. And he said, don't expose it to.
I guess he wouldn't approve of the guy in the middle with the knife.
Wow. Okay. Want to start with that?
Oh, well, yeah. So during the daytime, a lot of times you're on your own, and at night you tend to meet up, as Liz said, with you get a rhythm, and you run into the same people at night. And so, with 6 weeks, you develop friendships and relationships and what you call your Camino family. So here's just some pictures. You do a lot of community meals together. That picture of me up in the corner, there was this dude, now I can't even remember his name, but he seemed to, it was in a city. We were in San Sebastian or somewhere, and there was these crowds of young people just following him. So I figured he must have been someone famous. So I said, and I knew he was a musician. So I remember going up to him and saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but can I take my picture with you? Because my grandkids might know you." And turns out he's the guy. I don't know if you remember the song, "This is the final countdown."
Oh, yeah.
He's some Euro, very washed out older guy, but he still has quite a following. It was just a funny moment along the way. Anyways.
This was Camino family from my first trip, and with Linda Pryor. Linda used to live on the island.
Oh, yeah.
And the fellow on the far left, he was from Norway, and you could always tell the Norwegians because they always passed you. They walked a lot past. And he joined us because he noticed that we were the last to leave the albergues in the morning, and the last to arrive someplace. So we took it really easy, and he thought he would like to experience that. We were so laissez-faire, and he had been with a group of Italians that planned out their day in like, okay, we're going to be here for coffee, here for lunch, and here for we'll be in bed by 4 o'clock, and blah 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 blah. And he thought, these people don't organize anything, so he joined us. And then Rob in the very back, he joined us halfway through because we had another fellow, a German fellow, who he had some problem with his leg or his knee, so he took a bus into town to get some new shoes, and he met Rob on the bus. Anyway, when we met him in this bigger town, and he had too much to drink, and they got locked out of the albergue, and somebody had to let them in. And I heard this commotion in the middle of the night, and I didn't realize it was him. Anyway, he then went into his bunk, which was the top bunk, and he fell out. And he cracked his head, and they had to get ambulance, but the front doors were locked, and the people that ran the place, they didn't know how to get a hold of them. They were someplace. And so it took a while before the ambulance people could get in. And they was taken to hospital, and then Rob met us the next morning and told us what had happened. So we went to the hospital, and we got his backpack and shoes, etc. Made sure that he had a translator. Got a hold of his girlfriend in Germany, but he had to stay there. You know, when I talked to the nurse, we used Google Translate. I looked at what she had said. It said like he has lost his dreams. Anyway, so he had to stay behind, and he actually lost his hearing in one ear permanently. Anyway, Rob took his place, and on we went. This is just one of the albergues, and it was this place was joined to a church, and it was one of those places where you slept on mats on the floor, and everybody had to help make dinner, which was kind of fun.
This is up top is my little Camino family on one of the trips. And you know how we say that everybody has their own Camino? Well, these two young ladies, they're in their 80s, and they're from New York, and they used to have their luggage moved ahead every day. They were hilarious. They wouldn't stay in an albergue. They would stay in a hotel. And some days they would stay an extra day so they had time to color their hair. They were a riot. And this fellow with the beard, he was the hospitalier. He was the volunteer that ran the albergue, and he was from Australia, and he was in his 80s, and he had been there a couple of months, and he was just leaving the next day to do his 6th Camino. It was really, really cool, dude.
This is the
home sweet home.
typical accommodation that we stayed in, we were on the $25 a day plan. So this is one of the Caminos that, or albergues, that had lots of bunk beds in one room. They're not fun to stay in, just because lots of snoring and noise, etc. This is my sister and I checking for bed bugs. This is me sleeping on one of the mats on the floor. Sorry, you can't see that. This is a gold throne that I'm sitting in. So you don't have to stay in the cheap places. You could go to these fancier places. And they have, what are the fancy places called?
The pensions?
No,
Or?
the really fancy.
Oh, yeah. Posada?
Yeah, no, even better than the
Yeah, it
posadas.
was, there's a whole string of
It's
them
a
across.
lot of times it's castles that the government has taken over and renovated.
Yeah. It'll come.
Anyway, so they're very posh anyway. You could stay in them too. This is a converted church. So you're looking up at these beautiful arches, and they've got, this is glass, so you feel like you're walking on a cloud looking down. And there might be 4 to 6 bunk beds in these partitions.
Yeah.
This is just, it was raining outside, so people were drying their stuff inside. But it was a beautiful place.
Some places you end up staying in monasteries or convents, and they separate the men from the women. They sleep in different areas. So you think, wow, I'm going to get a good night's sleep, no snoring. But I'll tell you, the women snore just as much as the men.
Oh, we were in, Linda and I and a couple other friends were in one place where there was, I don't know, 12 bunk beds, something like that. And there was one fellow in the corner on the top bunk, and he was snoring, and it was really still early at night, and everybody else is awake, and they're listening to the snoring. And Linda's friend, she just gets up, she goes over to him, she pokes him until he's awake, and she says, "You got to get medical attention."
You got to see a doctor for that.
And everybody starts laughing. And then about 3 days later, we're in a monastery, and Linda and I and 2 or 3 others are in this one room, and there's a knock on the door. It's like 11 o'clock at night. It's late. And
He found the wine wall.
My bed was closest to the door, so we said, "Come in," and this guy, the guy that she had yelled at, comes in. He's got a cake in a box.
He fell in love with Linda.
And he kneels by my bed, says, "Linda, I love you." And I said,
"She's our other friend, Linda."
And he gets up and goes over there, "Linda, I love you."
And that night, we had gotten there late. Remember, we had run to get in. They were about to lock the doors, and they found 3 beds for us, and there was 4 of us. So I lost the flip of the coin and had to sleep on the floor. And I woke up that morning and I couldn't open my eye because I'd gotten stung by spiders so bad. I remember that.
So this is typical packing.
Yeah.
You have to, because you're carrying it, you want to pack light, and they suggest 10% of your body weight. So I was really glad that I was quite heavy. I could carry more. And I did take electronics, and I felt that was important enough. But I tried to keep everything lightweight, and I made a spreadsheet, and I'd list everything, and then I'd put how many grams it weighed, and then that was in 2019. And in 2023, I could reduce it by I found something that's lighter, and so you'd go through all these machinations and to try and get your pack down to the lightest that it could be.
Some things that I brought that I'm glad I did was a pashmina. It has so many functions. I mean, you can use it as a towel when you get out of the public showers. It provides warmth. And another thing it does is if you're lucky enough to get the bottom bunk, you can just clip on some clothes pegs and you've got a little bit of privacy too. So it goes a long way. Hiking poles I found were essential.
Oh, and an umbrella. I always take an umbrella.
Oh, yeah, Liz and her
Yeah,
umbrella.
because I'm sensitive to a lot of sun.
Yeah.
So I use the umbrella more in the sun than I do for rain.
A headlamp in the morning if you're getting up early, you don't want to wake people up. So
But
getting all your
nowadays,
stuff.
I think more people are using their cell phones, if they have a cell phone.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. And an open nail knife, but you can buy those because these are just great to have on the trail for, cheese and bread and cutting strings and everything, but it might be difficult to, like I usually bring my backpack as check or carry-on luggage. So your hiking poles and your knives, sometimes, these are a dime a dozen in France, so it's easy enough to get that kind of stuff in France. Some people get away with putting their hiking poles in their carry-on, but
When we did
I
the
haven't.
Portuguese one,
Yeah,
there was three of us, Linda and Darlene and I, and we were all carrying on luggage. But we thought, let's just put poles together. They wouldn't let us take them on the plane. So we put them in a green garbage bag, wrapped that up and put it in checked luggage because we figured if the airline loses it, doesn't matter, we can get more when we get there.
yeah. And earplugs are an essential part of traveling. Don't go home without them. Don't leave home without them.
I took a little pill container with some earplugs, some sleeping pills, some ibuprofen. I think that was it.
Moleskin?
This was my sleeping kit.
Oh.
So I would keep that under my pillow. So in the middle
Oh,
of the
I didn't
night,
know that.
yeah. Costs.
All right, well, I just did a little Google to keep up with the times on costs. And where did I put it? In 2026, they say to budget for between 40 to 60 euro a day to do the Française one. I mean, that includes breakfast, your snacks, your pilgrim dinner, and accommodation. So a rough budget, like for a month, would be about 1,500 euro. You could do a private room if you're not too fond of dormitory living, and that basically triples it. And that doesn't include your flights or your gear. You could spend less by staying in albergues, cooking some of your own meals. A lot of places have kitchens that you can utilize, and avoid luggage transfer services because that adds up as well. So that's just in a nutshell.
I think the cheapest accommodation is around €5 at the municipal. So
Yeah.
often municipalities would sponsor an albergue, but it was the cheapest accommodation. So there'd be a room with lots of bunk beds in it.
And sometimes you get soggy, spongy mattresses.
Yeah, and I paid my €5 and I walked in, looked around, and walked out.
Yeah.
But then you can get an upgrade from that. An albergue that's about €10, and for about €15 you get private albergues, so they're a step up. And then a private room would cost 25 to 35 at the lower end, and then you've got the higher end goes up from there. And meals, you can baguette and cheese. So often you could, as you're walking, you often come across farms that. There was one farm, she had homemade cheese stacked on the windowsill, and as you walk up the front doors, you tap on the window, and she'd come and she'd sell you farm cheese. So it was easy to get cheese. And so, do you have to be fit? Can you talk about that?
No, you don't, but it would help. You just go at your own pace, your own speed. Take as long as you want. I mean, it's anybody can do it. It's just don't push yourself and listen to yourself. Pay attention. Yeah.
A lot of people spend a lot of time preparing, and that makes sense. And you typically would walk anywhere from 15 to 35 kilometers a day. No regions, it's more like 35 kilometers. And people that don't do a lot of walking, more like 15 kilometers. I felt comfortable 15 to 25, but I have done, I think it was as much as 45 one day because it was late October and albergues were closing, and which meant that there was more pressure on the ones that remained open and they were full. So we had to go quite a distance in the dark before we found a place that had accommodations. But 15 to 25 is a nice range. And I always figured, well, by the time you get halfway there, you should be fit. So, but it is different walking, like 20 kilometers is twice around Newcastle, which is pretty reasonable. It's not hard. But if you had to do that every day, then that changes things.
Yeah, it wears on you. Yeah.
And in terms of getting lost, you always find these yellow arrows. You see one on the rocks here. You train your eye to find them, and they're on curbs or on telephone poles, or and that marks the way, and you just follow those arrows. If you get to a crossroads, you just stop, and you know one of these roads is going to have a yellow arrow or somewhere to tell you which road to take. And if you start walking and you don't see any, then you just walk back and look for the arrow. And these are embedded in sidewalks in a lot of the towns, bronze shells, and you just follow them too. What else do you have for fears? Getting lost. I got lost 2 or 3 times, usually because in one instance I was chatting with this Icelandic man, and we just kept going and talking away, and we're up this mountain, and then we look down and there's people with backpacks walking way down. And I thought, well, that's strange. So I took a photograph and zoomed it up, and I could see a yellow arrow. So we had to backtrack our steps. And sometimes in a city, there's so much happening that you might lose track. But you just look for people with backpacks and find them, or on your phone if you've downloaded some GPS points. And then you get to the cathedral, and so this is the square in front of the cathedral, and people just collect there, and they sit there and they watch people come in. And people that they've known throughout the walk, and cheer them on. So you get quite a crowd by the end of the day of people just, clapping as other people come in. This is the, what do they call it? The
Buena Fero.
Yeah, right here. It's an incense container. Yeah. And it's got 60 pounds of
176 pounds.
176.
It swings, I've got the stats, Liz. Swings 70 miles per hour, requires 8 people to swing it.
There they are.
Originally, it wasn't just ceremonial, it helped mask the smell of unwashed medieval pilgrims.
And then this is the nicest laundromat I've ever seen. It's in a stone building. It's got a courtyard at the back that's dedicated to Leonard Cohen. The owner is a Leonard Cohen fan. He's been to 7 of Leonard Cohen's concerts.
Nicest man.
They've got antique dressers where you fold your clothes.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And this is Nora. She was just fascinated by this.
The sheets.
Iron sheets. So she helped this woman iron the sheets.
So another tradition is at the end. That's the famous cathedral where someone's buried there. They have a pilgrim mass, and they have it cordoned off for the pilgrims that have completed it, and you go and you try to hear your name being called. It's all done in Latin, so it's it's a beautiful cathedral. That whole area is just incredible. Yeah, so much history.
And then by the time you get there, you don't want to stop. You've got a routine. You like your routine. You're most likely fit by now. So you can go another 3 days to Finisterre, which means end of the earth. And so Linda, Darlene, and I did. So we walked another 3 days to Finisterre, and it's a beautiful walk.
Get you to mile
Mile
00.
which is on here, but you can't see it.
Yeah. And they say, tradition says that when you get there, you're supposed to burn your clothes and run into the ocean. It was raining, so we were covered. But that's the only Camino that goes from Santiago to outside. So there's and the time of the year too. I mean, I've gone a few times in the fall, and I just love the fall. It's less crowded. The harvest is going on. A lot of times, well, in Portugal, it's the apple cidery capital of where we walk through. The cideries are amazing, and in France, the wineries. The grapes have all been picked, but a lot of the vines still are heavy with grapes, and so you feast along the way. There's just so much a plenty from everything growing, and the scenery and the sunsets. It's just a beautiful experience. I highly recommend it.
I'll tell you one story of a place I had to break out of. So as we're walking, the Norwegian fellow we were with, he went ahead, and he would text us some info. He said, "You're going to come across a really nice restaurant." And one day he texted us, and he says, "I just saw an albergue that you should stay at. It's an eco albergue, and they've got solar panels on the roof, and they've got a water collecting system. You guys will really like it. But I'm going further." So by the time we got there, it was getting into late afternoon, and he had gone on. So we booked into this place, and there was the night before I had gotten bitten by bedbugs, and 30% of the people that get bitten by bedbugs react, and I'm one of them. Other people get bitten and they don't know it, but at least I know that I've been exposed to bedbugs. So once I've been exposed, it's easy to deal with. You have to heat up. The bugs don't stay on you, but they'll go into your backpack. So you want to put all your clothes in a dryer, and the heat of a dryer for 30 minutes is enough to kill them. With the backpack, you can put it in a green garbage bag, put it in the sun and for an hour, and that'll kill it. But anyway, the protocol is the next place you go to, let them know. And so this place, I let them know, and there was this guy at the welcome desk, and he had these glasses on like that with some duct tape around them. And I said, "I've been exposed to bed bugs." He says, "That's okay. We have a protocol. Don't you panic. We have a protocol. We know what to do." He thinks about what to do. And then he says, "You give me all your clothes. I'll put them in the dryer and put your backpack in this green bag, and go get some clothes from the leftover heap, because people will throw things away as they go to lighten their load. I found some clothes to wear." He put my backpack and my shoes in a green garbage bag, and he sprays something in it. He says, "Smell." And so I smell, and it's ammonia. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the courtyard with a few others, and we're having a coffee and waiting for the clothes to dry. This fellow comes in, he's wearing an orange jumpsuit and a hernia belt, and he's a little bit unsteady on his feet, and he has an argument with the guy at the front desk. And then the guy at the front desk gives up and gives the guy money, and the guy goes to the pop machine right behind me, which is loaded with beer, and he gets 6 beer out, and then he goes somewhere in a door, and he disappears. And then later that day, I had a bite. I don't know if it was a bed bug bite or something else, but it looked like it was getting infected. It was getting red and a line coming up my leg. And we're waiting for the dinner room to open up so we can go for dinner. And a nurse from England looks at my leg, and she said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I don't know, it's some sort of bite." She said, "You need to have that looked at. That's not a good sign." And so then, it's 8 o'clock, and we still haven't eaten. And then 9 o'clock comes along, and some guy says, well, wouldn't you know it, it's 9 o'clock, we haven't eaten, you know, and turns out the chef is a drunk. And then I realized that guy that was drinking all the beer was the chef. And then it turned out that not only was he the chef, but he was the owner of this place. And so finally he comes out and the dinner is served. And so I talked to the guy with the funny glasses and said, is there a clinic in town? He talks to the owner and back and forth in Spanish. And he says, he'll take you. And I said, no, I can take a taxi. And now dessert is being served, and it's some sort of a pudding thing. And the owner, you know, he's got a bowl of this pudding, and he grabs his glass of wine and he pours it on top of the pudding and starts eating that. And he's getting drunker by the minute. And I said, no, just tell me where it is, and we'll get a taxi. And back and forth between this guy and the owner. And he said, no, he'll take you. And they're getting angry, and I'm thinking, why is he getting angry? I just want to go to the clinic. I don't want to disturb them. No. And so I said, no, seriously, I'll just get a taxi. And no, he'll take you. And Linda's standing behind this guy, and she mouths to me, we gotta get out of here. So I said, I'll just go get my backpack. I think my passport's in there. And he said, I told you to take your important papers out of there before. I said, oh yeah, you did. Right. They must be in my room. I'll go get them. So I start walking up the stairs, and Mats, the guy from Sweden's, walking down. He doesn't know what's going on. And I said, Mats, we're making a break for it. He said, oh, okay. What do I do? And I said, you see that green garbage bag? Grab it and just casually walk out. And then I went up and got my papers and things. And then I took my sarong, which I put over my head so he couldn't quite see me. And I walked past the dining room, and Linda and I walked out. And then we ran up the street because there was a municipal albergue just up the street, and it was 9:45, I think. And so in 15 minutes, they were going to close. So we get there in time, and we explain the situation. They don't speak a lot of Spanish, but there was another fellow there that did, and he interpreted. And the women go, So this guy had a reputation. So she phoned a taxi to take me to the clinic. And we said to the taxi driver, he spoke more English, could you just wait for us in the shadows in front of the albergue, so we'll get a few more things, because Linda needed to get her things. And Matt met us out in the shadows and passed over Linda's baggage. And then we went off to the clinic, and the nurse and the doctor didn't speak English, but they sort of made indications like Pomferera, which meant, you know, did you sleep in Pomferera last night? Yes. What do you expect? It's like anybody else knew there was bedbugs in this town except for us. Anyway, he put some antibiotic cream, and it was just fine. And we went back. But it's funny having to break out. Anyway, we got anything else to say?
Well, you talked about mentioning how the Camino might have changed us, like what you leave with.
Well, certainly it changes you physically because you're fit by the end of it. But I felt much more comfortable on one of the Caminos. I walked, I think, the first half with my sister, I think, and then the second half by myself. And I felt quite comfortable to be able to do that. And another time I took the bus to Portugal by myself and figured out how to get there without speaking much of the language. So you felt more confident about traveling alone. I felt quite comfortable walking just by myself or meeting new people and talking to people. It was very, I don't know, it was a good feeling.
So I just wrote, I'd say it changed me in quiet, lasting ways. And there's something about the early mornings, setting off, watching the sunrise. You become calmer and more appreciative of how strong you really are in doing it. I mean, it's quite an accomplishment. And it slows you down, and life becomes really simple. I mean, it's a very simple existence. You walk, you notice, you breathe, you're present, and it strips away everything that doesn't really matter. Like it's just a real soulful experience. That's, yeah, like I say, I always come home feeling a little lighter after having done it. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
my
you realize how
takeaway.
much you don't need. Right?
Yeah, living out of a backpack. Yeah, you're right. Don't get me wrong, it's not a walk in the park either. It's, there are days that are, you question why you're there, and it can be really taxing, and but you push through, and it just makes you appreciate how, we're always in constant flow, and things do change and things do get better. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned that way too. Yeah.
Any questions?
Have you finished this function? Can I get you to stop sharing and just move
yeah.
over closer to Linda?
You asked for a quote, so I'm going to give you one. Here's my ending. Walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with their heads in their clouds and their feet on the ground. Let their spirit ignite a fire within you to leave the world better than you found it. Just walk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Very exciting.
Good. Yeah, there's a few things up here from our travels if anybody's interested.